friends, welcome back to the Avocado Toast Budget. If you're new here, my name is Lexa, and today we are taking a deep dive into the world of financial minimalism. Financial minimalism is a popular side of the internet, especially in the personal finance world, that aims to make budgeting, saving, and paying off debt as simple and intuitive as possible. Now, personally, I don't follow financial minimalism to a T, and I do think that there are some tips out there that are a wee bit extreme for my taste. However, as I have navigated the world of financial minimalism, I actually do think that there are a lot of valuable concepts that we can all incorporate into our own financial journey that are realistic and can actually help us to meet our goals. So today we are going to cover 8 of my favorite minimalism money tips. So let's do this thing. The foundation of financial minimalism is to create a simple and straightforward budget. Now, let's be real here. I am a fan of a zero-based budget, but I will be the first to admit that it is very in-depth and it can kind of be a little overwhelming to look at and to kind of figure out how to navigate when you are first starting off with learning about budgeting and how to reach your financial goals. So I do think that there is a lot of value in taking a step back and making a budget that is simple and straightforward and works for you. I talked about this in my Budgeting with ADHD video, but budgeting can be as simple as just splitting up your spending into 3 different categories: saving, your necessary expenses, and your extra spending. If you want to take a minimalistic approach to finances, I highly recommend that you just open 3 different accounts, 2 checking accounts and 1 saving. All of your saving and debt payoff goals can go inside of that savings account. 1 checking account can be reserved for your necessary expenses like rent, utilities, daycare, car insurance, all of that. And then you have your other checking account that you look at on a day-to-day basis to tell you how much money that you have to spend. This is a very easy way to make sure that you reach your savings goals and all of your bills are paid, but that still gives you some wiggle room in your budget to decide when and where you want to spend that spending money. This can be such a simple but effective way to start budgeting. The next thing that you want to do is focus on the big 3. So this is actually a concept that I haven't talked about here on my channel yet, but can be really helpful when you are trying to navigate where you can kind of start cutting back on some of your spending to reach your other goals. The concept of the big 3 focuses on the 3 categories that people tend to spend the most money in, but also have the most wiggle room. That includes housing, food, and transportation. So if you are looking at your budget and you don't know where you can find some wiggle room to start cutting back on your expenses, that way you can save more money or pay off more debt, take a look at these big 3 categories, because oftentimes, those are the places that people find that they have some room to be able to cut back on their spending. That way they can increase the gap between their income and their expenses. This does not mean that you have to cut out certain categories entirely, but oftentimes there are places inside of these categories that we can cut back by like $5 or $10 that really add up over time and don't impact our quality of life or the joy that our budget is bringing to us. Financial minimalism tip number 3 is to avoid buying extras when it's not necessary. We live in a capitalist society, and capitalism often creates this sense of need and urgency to get the biggest, brightest, newest, fun thing. And what happens is that oftentimes companies are able to convince us that we need to replace items that don't need replacing yet, or to buy multiples of items that we would have been fine just having one of. Minimalism in general surrounds itself in this idea of letting go of those items that no longer serve you, bring value or purpose to your life. And financial minimalism works off this same concept. Spending less on unnecessary replacements or extras of items means that you have more freedom in your budget to spend money on those things that you do care about. So before going out and purchasing the next iPhone, because that's just what you do every 2 years, or buying another eyeshadow palette that looks exactly like the other 3 eyeshadow palettes that you have sitting in your drawer, ask yourself if you really care about those things, or if that money that you're spending could be spent elsewhere or saved elsewhere that you would care about a lot more. And this is not about giving up all of the unnecessary items in your life, but rather it's about evaluating for yourself and your unique situation whether that money could better serve you elsewhere. Tip number 4 is to cut back on fad fashion or trendy items that you'll wear once and never look back on. Now, I have talked about the new nuances of fast fashion and places like Shein when it comes to addressing the fact that ethics and quality are often lacking with companies like this. However, they do provide accessibility to people who don't have as much discretionary spending, and especially people in larger bodies. So this tip is not to say never to buy fast fashion or the latest trendy clothing, but rather to at least make sure that you have a staple wardrobe that you have invested in and that you can wear season after season, year after year. And to take a step back and take some time before making those purchases on those trendier fad fashion clothing items to decide whether that is something that you actually are excited about wearing and that fits in with your style and your life in general, or if you just saw it scrolling on TikTok or Instagram and because everyone else has it, you think that you need to have it, but in reality, you're going to get it and realize that it is not your style and it doesn't make you feel comfortable, so it's going to end up in the back of your closet, never to be seen again. And if you are sitting here watching this video thinking,
okay, Alexa, that sounds great, but my body weight fluctuates and there is no way I'm going to be able to wear the same clothing season to season, year upon year.
Trust me, I get that. I am the queen of fluctuating in weight and not being able to wear the same clothing for very long. But luckily, I have figured out a way around this, and it is awesome. I highly recommend that you check out Universal Standard. I adore Universal Standard, one, because every single article of clothing that they sell comes in sizes US 00 to size 40. I also love that they have unique sizing. So they recognize that the fashion industry is kind of fucked in the way that it sizes clothing because the average size woman in the US wears a size 18 to 20. So they changed up their sizing, and a size medium, or the average, aligns with the US average. So if you are a size 18, you actually wear a size medium in their clothing sizes. And then it goes up and down from there, covering the range of 00 to 40. But, and here is the big tip when it comes to investing in clothing that you can wear for a long time, even if your body changes, Universal Standard has this concept that they call their Fit Liberty. And this is where it shines, and I get so excited talking about it because it is genius. If you buy any of their clothing that is part of their Fit Liberty line, if your body changes at all within the next year, you can exchange that article of clothing for whatever size that you need. This is absolutely free of charge, and it means that you can feel confident investing in standard basic articles of clothing that you will wear on a day-to-day basis and still know that a year from now you can wear that same article of clothing no matter what size you are or how your body has changed. Along the same lines of simplifying your wardrobe, decorate based on simplicity, function, and joy rather than just what you're currently seeing on Pinterest this month. Now, I will be the first to admit that Pinterest has got me to buy a lot of random wall decorating shit. And inevitably what happens is my taste in home decor changes, and within like a month or a season, I'm already wanting to buy something different. But I have adopted this concept from Financial Minimalism, and it has helped my wallet so much. When I simplified my home decor and really narrowed down my personal style, not based on trends or anything, but what brought me joy in my space that I'm living in, I have been able to declutter my home decor and actually find pieces that I really value. And studies have shown that actually the more stuff you have in your home, the more tempted you are to buy more stuff. Whereas whenever you cut back and simplify your space, you don't feel the need to keep buying things to make it feel more complete, and therefore you save yourself a ton of money. Another way that I have modified my life to help me to stay in line with this financial minimalism concept is that I have stopped taking strolls through Hobby Lobby. I swear to God, those sales just suck me in. All of those quote signs, somehow when I walk into that store, I feel like I need all of them because I mean they're 50, 75% off, so how could I not, even though they are literally always 50 to 75% off, and that might as well just be the original price of the item. And I do not need another quote that says live, laugh, love. Tip number 6 is to comparison shop before you buy. I used to find the first thing that had good reviews on Amazon whenever I was looking for an item, click that, click add to cart or buy now, and then it was shipped and done for. And then inevitably, like 15 minutes later, I would end up finding an item that was better quality or a more affordable price and that I would have preferred to buy instead. And had I just waited like 10 minutes, I would have gotten a lot more use out of that item. So I highly recommend that you just take the few extra minutes to comparison shop before you buy, especially for those larger items. A really good example of us not doing this is this couch that you see in the background of every video. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that this was definitely an impulse purchase that we did not comparison shop for. We did not read the reviews online for. Had we read the reviews online, we would have known that this couch felt comfy for the first month and then was god awful, and we would have waited and spent our money on something better. And this whole tip revolves around this idea in financial minimalism of being intentional with your spending. And it helps you to make sure that you get the best deal and the highest quality item in something that you can use over and over again and not have to just continue replacing. Tip number 7 is to shift your mindset into thinking that money equals time, or AKA, how many hours do I need to work to afford this thing? Because oftentimes before we think about money like this, if we just look at a price tag and say $20, that doesn't actually hold a lot of weight in our minds. But whenever I was working a job for $10 an hour and I looked at that cart of things that I had picked up on my Target shopping trip that I definitely did not plan on buying, and realized that that $100 cart full of things would actually cost me like 12 to 15 hours of my life after taxes, I started to really question whether I actually wanted all of those things inside of my cart. Because the answer is generally that no, that $100 worth of random shit I would not trade 15 hours of my life for. And this doesn't mean that every time you ask yourself the question, the answer needs to be no and you don't buy that item. But rather instead, when you are looking at money as time, you can be sure that if you are saying, yes, this is worth that time to me, that you are spending money on things that actually serve a purpose and are going to bring you tons of value in your life. And then you can be confident in what you're buying. And finally, our last financial minimalism tip is to replace looking at the total cost of the item and instead evaluating it as cost per use. This is a very similar concept to our last tip, and the idea is that instead of just looking at the total price of the item, you are evaluating how much you are spending in relation to how much use you will get out of that item. And of course, this is not always accessible. If my desk chair were to break today, I need a new desk chair, and if I only have $50 to spend on one, I can't look at the cost per item for one that is $500 and decide that it's a better deal because it's outside of my budget. However, if you do have some wiggle room inside of your budget and your spending, it can be really helpful for you to look at how much you are paying for the item in terms of how long it's going to last you and how much use you are going to get out of it. Because something might be on the surface level more expensive, but when you put it in terms of cost per use, you are actually spending less money by investing in that item now and saving down the road. So that is it for our journey through financial minimalism. I hope that you learned some really helpful things that you can implement inside of your own life and budget. And if you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a big thumbs up. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm, helps boost this video to the top. That way more people can find this content, and I will see you all next time.